Hey guys, I'm going to read aloud chapter 5 from Tiger Tiger. And remember, there's nothing on the screen. I'm just reading from the book, so this is the only thing you'll see on the screen the whole time. Okay, chapter 5 is called Marcus. The boy Marcus was plotting his revenge on Aurelia and her pet. Not her pet tiger, her pet keeper. That was how Marcus saw Julius, as Aurelia's tame man. Between them, the slave and his young mistress had cheated Marcus of his pleasure, humiliated him, and hurled him to the ground. They had brought him low. He wasn't going to stand for that. Not him. What, a senator's son swallow such an insult? No, no, matter how high Aurelia set herself above him. But he had to be careful. I hope you realize, Marcus's father frequently said to him, what a privilege it is that you're invited to the palace to be the Lady Aurelia's companion. It's not every senator who's close enough to the emperor to gain such favors. And how is the noble girl? How is she getting on with that beast of hers? She's all right, and so is the beast, as you call him. He's not much of a beast, though. What do you mean? He's practically a full-grown tiger, I'm told. Yes, but there's a bit of him that won't be growing with the rest, and that makes all the difference, retorted Marcus with a smirk. It took a moment for his father to grasp his meaning, then he smiled. And how do you know that? I find out things. I suppose it's common gossip among the slaves that the animal had to be castrated. Well, and quite right, too. The emperor is too wise to take risks. I think it's like a lie to pretend she's tamed a tiger when all she's tamed is a sort of half thing. I don't notice you objecting to riding your gelding, said his father. I don't think you'd relish being put up on a stallion, not you, my boy. You're not enough of a rider. Yet he added, as he saw the boy turn pale and realized he had been too scathing, you're young. When you come into your full strength, I'll give you a more challenging mount. That afternoon, when Marcus went for his riding lesson, he took a crop from the tack room, and when the riding master left the schooling ring for a moment, struck his horse, spurring it on and dragging on the reins at the same time, so that the creature didn't know what was wanted of it, and eventually reared him off. Marcus, who was not a coward, immediately remounted and rode around the ring at full gallop, lashing the horse all the way. The master reappeared, stood for a moment in astonishment, then sprang in front of the horse and grabbed the bridle, bringing the animal to such a sudden halt that Marcus came off again. What do you think you're doing? The master asked furiously. Marcus stood up, trying to control his breathing. He's very high-spirited today, said the boy. He threw me off before. He wanted the devil run out of him, so I obliged him. Your horse is one of the quietest in the stables. Why were you using a crop on him? You know I forbid it. Give it to me at once, and don't lay hands on it again until I give you permission. Sullenly, Marcus handed the crop over. All right. The truth is I tried to beat a bit of life into him, he said. I'm bored with him. He's no fun to ride. Why can't I ride one of the stallions? Because your father thinks you'll be safer on a gelding, and so do I. Now remount and let me see a collected canter. The hurt, the sting of humiliation dug in a little deeper. They all treated him like a baby. He would show them, or no, not show them, not in an obvious way. That would be childish and might get him into serious trouble, but he would do something to prove himself, to himself anyway. Meanwhile, his visits to the palace continued and he behaved impeccably. He chatted and played with Aurelia and Boots, but all the while he was dreaming great dreams. He thought what fun it would be if Aurelia were suddenly attacked. Of course, if that happened, Marcus would snatch Julius's sword while Julius stood paralyzed with horror and kill the tiger with one stroke and rescue her. Ah, then, nobody would treat him like a baby then. He would be a hero and the emperor would reward him. Marcus never doubted he was capable of such a feat. His other dreams were all of the circus, and these he half shared with Aurelia because in this one way he was her superior. He had been to the circus and she had not. Her father refused to take her until she was 14. He said the spectacle, proud as he was of it, was not for children. What he really meant, and she knew it, was that he was afraid she would be distressed by it, and perhaps blame him for her distress, or perhaps show by some signs that she was too weak-minded to enjoy or even endure it. She was far too tender-hearted for her father's liking. But Marcus's father had no such thoughts. There was an ever-increasing number of feast days in the Roman calendar. The people, never sated with sensation and the excitement of bloodshed, demanded more and more. And on every feast day, Marcus begged his father to take him to the circus. It was by far his favorite pastime. There was nothing about it that he didn't love. You could never imagine it without seeing it, he told Aurelia. Of course, I sit in the best seats, the ones reserved for senators' families. If you came, you'd sit in the emperor's box, but nobody else has such good seats. The excitement before anything happens, it's almost the best part. I get gooseflesh from the crowds, all jostling and shouting, getting really worked up before the show begins. I love looking at the arena. It's all covered with golden sand, fresh each time, as if nothing had ever happened before, raked and ready to soak up the blood. Aurelia would shudder, but she didn't stop him. There was something horribly fascinating about his recital that she was powerless to escape from. I know where the trapdoors are by now, he went on. You wouldn't guess if you didn't know. They rake the sand over the edges so the crowd will get a shock when some wild beast leaps out. Of course they don't use the same trapdoors each time, so I try to guess where they'll spring up from. And there are the big cage doors around the walls at the sides. The gladiators and slaves and some of the animals come through those. There's always a parade first. Some of the animals that are tame, like the elephants and horses, and there's an old bear too, are brought in and led around. Then the gladiators come in and march around the ring and salute the emperor and the empress, if they're there, and raise their fists to greet the crowd, and everyone shouts and cheers. You know what, Aurelia, he said, glowing with the excitement of the telling. There's nothing as thrilling as looking at a man, all glittering in his armor, showing his bravery, and knowing that you might see him killed, that in an hour or two he might be lying there dead. And he knows it too. That's the strange thing. Aurelia gazed at him. They must be very brave, those gladiators, she said once. Oh, yes, they're brave enough, he replied. They have to be. They're fighting for their lives, often against each other. What I sometimes think of is what's happened before. I mean, not right before, but I mean they lived together while they're training. Maybe they've made friends, and then there they are in the ring, and they've got to try to kill each other. I wouldn't make friends with anyone if I might have to kill them, said Aurelia. I'd keep myself all to myself and not even look at any of the others. I wouldn't possibly be able to fight anyone anyway, but if I were a man and I had to, I couldn't do it if I liked them. Yes, said Marcus, you're right. You'd have to think of them as your mortal enemies. You couldn't be friends with them. Do you think they ever have anything to do with the animals before they meet them in the circus? What do you mean, anything to do with them? Well, they might get fond of them and then... Oh, come on, crowed Marcus. You mean make a pet of one like you did with your Bootsy? Of course not. If they did, the animal wouldn't fight them. Think what a scandal that would be. I think, said Aurelia slowly, that would be the most wonderful thing that had ever happened in the circus since it began. Boots was now an impressive sight. He was fully grown, sleek and plump and beautiful, and as tame and contented as any house cat. When Marcus, who longed to be tall but never would be, stood beside him, the tiger came almost to his armpit. Marcus was confident enough now to put his arm across the striped back and tickle the thickly padded ribs, which Aurelia allowed. Boots would sometimes lean against the boy in a friendly way, and then he had to brace his feet or the great weight of the tiger would have pushed him over. Marcus decided Aurelia was practically in love with the thing. Isn't he marvelous, she kept cooing. Isn't he the handsomest creature in the whole world? She would crouch in front of the tiger and take his great whiskery face between her hands and kiss his nose, and sometimes, when she fed him tidbits, put her hand right into his mouth to show how tame he was. When he lay at full length on the ground, Aurelia would sometimes sit astride him and dig her hands into the fur along his neck, kneading him to make him purr. Marcus smiled outwardly and sneered inwardly. If Boots were a real tiger... She who rides a tiger dares not dismount, someone had said that in Marcus's hearing, and one day he repeated it to Aurelia. She looked at him sharply to see if he was mocking her, more than just a little bit of teasing that she allowed. I can dare anything with my darling Boots, she said. Would you dare take his boots off? She started a little and looked down at his sheathed feet. Larger pouches had been made for him as he grew, but they were still there. She hardly noticed them anymore, but suddenly she saw them as a token that she didn't trust him. Of course I would. He would never hurt me, she said. Go on then. Off with him. She turned and beckoned to Julius, standing as ever watchfully in the shadows. Julius, I want these foot covers taken off, she ordered. No, my lady. What do you mean, no? I say yes. You don't mean you think he would claw me now that he's so tame and loving? Okay, I'm going to stop here for another video.